All I want is you.
Hey guys, welcome back to 100% Mags. So as you can see, I am joined once again by a regular guest to the channel for the Spurs match previews, and it is Harry Scarfe, of course, from Scarfe Spurs Talk on YouTube. Before we get into, of course, to talk about our thoughts ahead of the game, of course, tomorrow, I would like, of course, Harry to introduce himself to newcomers to the channel that haven't seen Harry on before. So go ahead, Harry, mate.
Firstly, thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to getting into it, and I'm really looking forward to this weekend's game as well. Hi, I'm Harry Scarfe. I'm a football content creator and YouTuber, and not just Spurs, a football content creator and YouTuber as well, creating content multi-platform, X, TikTok, Instagram, you name it, daily for people. But I also have my own YouTube channel, Scarfe Spurs Talk, where you can find Spurs England and Premier League content. And for those Newcastle fans, for example, there's that called a Premier League podcast. We call it the Scarfe Talks Premier League podcast. It's Wednesday night, 7:45 p.m. And 9 times out of 10, there is a Newcastle fan on, or we're talking a lot about Newcastle, who I've been really impressed with, especially recently. So, and of course, England national team content that may interest Newcastle fans, as well as the content this weekend around the game, because I am going match day vlog, match preview, match reaction, you name it. But thank you very much for having me once again. I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, like you say, always a pleasure to have you come on the channel, mate, and delve into, of course, your thoughts on what's happening on the Spurs side of things. And, of course, definitely go check out that Premier League show. I've seen it a few times. Really good show that Harry puts on there. So, yeah, definitely go check that out, guys, because it is a really good show. But before we get into the talk of the match, I do want to say a Happy New Year to everybody, and a Happy New Year to you, Harry, mate. I hope you have a brilliant 2025. So let's go into, of course, talking about this game now. As a Newcastle United fan, 2024 ended off on a pretty high note, with, of course, winning Old Trafford in pretty good fashion as well. It was a pretty easy game, I thought. What was your thoughts on that, Harry, mate?
Yeah, I think
how Newcastle's played of late.
Yeah, I think you've done really well recently. A real upturn in form, but in this game, you're totally in control. And if United hadn't made that change in the 33rd minute, as much as it would have been painful for Xerxes, I don't like to see that player dragged off, booed, and it's not nice. But if they hadn't made that change and brought Kobbie Mainoo on, then that scoreline is far bigger. But been really impressed with you recently, and I think there's a few reasons, in my opinion, as an outsider, why it's really come together. I think a big part of it is Tonali really settling into his position, so you can win those midfield battles, offer more protection to that defence, because ultimately you're keeping more clean sheets. And I think the likes of Hull, excellent form at the moment, done really well. And I think that's all, influenced by the midfield, who are offering more protection than ever to that defence. Of course, you're scoring more goals than ever as well. I think a large part of that, Isak in particular, I mean, was it 6 consecutive games now he scored? He's absolutely on fire. But also, when your striker breeds confidence, others, work off that. And I think Murphy is a player I still think you do, but talks of Newcastle needing a right winger, all of a sudden here comes Murphy to prove his point, which I find quite funny. Gordon is doing really well as well. His stats and numbers are getting better game by game. So your upturn in form has resulted in you conceding less goals, scoring more, and just real upturn in form, which is great to see. And you're doing really well. The only way is up at the moment, I think, for Newcastle.
Yeah, like you've just said there, you've pretty much said everything that I would say. To be honest, we've been in really good form of late. Standout players for us so far have been the likes of Lewis Hall. For me, probably one of the best left backs out there right now.
Yeah.
In the Premier League, and if he continues to go, the way he is, then maybe even the world. Isak, fine scoring form at the moment, just banging goals in right, left, and centre. And the perfect time to start doing it as well, because we need to see, somebody up top that can do that and, get them goals consistently week after week for win. That's something that, we are seeing now from Isak, which is nice to see. We know that he does have that potential to be able to go to that next level. And at the moment, some people are saying that he's now surpassed Erling Haaland is the best player in the Premier League right now. And you can see that, by the media. Look at what the media's saying, like Paul Merson on Sky Sports, coming out saying that Arsenal's got to put everything out there to be able to get Isak to join their club. And I don't see that happening, to be honest. I really don't. Because for me, at the moment, there's no clubs out there that have the money to be able to, afford somebody like Isak. It's going to be bare minimum 150 million is what's being talked about. And for me, I feel that may be a little bit too low. I think it's probably going to be somewhere around about the 200 million mark that Newcastle would be looking for Isak. But that's just my opinion anyway. I don't know if, everybody else thinks that as well. But I think the main turnaround at the moment with our form is looking into that midfield, looking at the likes of Sandro Tonali coming in at that number 6 role, something that, I've said quite a lot over the years on my channel since starting this channel, and Sandy being at the club, that when he did that number 6, and it's proved it, Sandy's went into that role, he's doing fantastic in that role. Bruno's coming into the number 8 role, he's been able to get in there more, he's been able to get them threaded through passes, and that's what we're seeing on a weekly basis now. Touching on, of course, Sandro Tonali and Bruno, I mean, what's your thoughts on both of them, Harry, mate?
Yeah, excellent. As I said, with Tonali, a real upturn in form. I think it took him a while to really, get up to grips, I suppose, and really, be comfortable with his position. But I think that's understandable. The time he's been out, obviously banned, so there's no surprise there. But he's really gelled recently and just really drastically improved. Because I remember at the start of the year, it was, what was your best midfield 3? This is what it seemed on paper: Joelinton, Guimaraes, and Tonali. But it was a case of Tonali. How long will it take to kind of get match fit and to really suit the system? And I think that's exactly what's happening right now. Guimaraes is a player where I think his quality and potential is clear to see. I think like for example, you played Man United last, a bit like Bruno Fernandes has. Obviously, he was unavailable for that game. You both those players, for example, have just in them play one pass, they can cut open a defence. They're one step ahead of the game, and they can literally wherever you want the ball, they can play it, they can ping it. So yeah, Guimaraes is excellent, the heartbeat of that Newcastle team. But you've done really well. But the only thing that concerns me from looking at a Newcastle point of view, if I was a Newcastle fan, would be Fabian Schär being out for this game and how you cope without him, and what looks like Lloyd Kelly stepping in. I think that's a little bit, no disrespect, but a little bit of a drop off, and that will have to see some adaptation, unless Botman, who I believe has declared himself fit for this game, but I don't expect him to start. So we'll have to see what happens there. But those two players you mentioned have been excellent, and that midfield 3 is excellent, and that midfield battle will be really interesting on Saturday, because if you win that, which you have in recent times against us, because I think you've won the last quite a few. It might be 5 league games against us now. It's something like, it's crazy. If you look at the maturity of them, you win those midfield battle. You look at what went wrong, for example, when we had Stellini, that awful game. I mean, the club was shot to pieces there, don't get me wrong. We lost that midfield battle. We went with 2 in midfield, and your 3 just ate them alive. So we've got to be careful there.
Yeah, like you say, the midfield is somewhere that we've been winning the games quite a lot. It's like I said, like you've said there, purely down to the fact that Sandro Tonali and Bruno are just absolutely bossing that midfield at the moment. Then you add in the likes of Joelinton, who for most people goes under the radar because you're too busy looking at, Sandro Tonali and what Bruno's doing. And there's Joelinton, just running around the midfield, scooping up the defensive side of things and the attacking side of things as well. So he's, playing that box-to-box powerhouse role that you don't really see in the Premier League that much these days. Since the likes of Patrick Vieira, I think, at Arsenal, sort of that sort of player I would go with for Joelinton, the powerhouse. Sort of like Rodri as well at Man City, which you can see how that's impacted Man City with them not having Rodri this season since Arsenal took him out. Talking about Spurs, I've got to say, as well, looking really, really good at the beginning of the season, and now it seems as though it's sort of fallen off. I mean, looking from the outside in, it just doesn't look good at the moment. You could see, we talked about, I think back in September, when we played, about Ange Postecoglou slouching over on the sideline after only the first game of the season. I mean, it's clear that, that is now affecting the performances of Spurs. I mean, what's your thoughts, on how your season's been going so far, Harry, mate?
Yeah, it hasn't been great, to be honest with you. And you take one look at the table, and it's not good. It's not where we want to be. I'm still personally, I can't speak on behalf of the fan base because a lot of people do disagree, but I'm still behind, fully Postecoglou, because just stats like Postecoglou last season was the first Spurs manager to complete a full season in the new stadium since 2018-19 season. So that shows we don't even give managers a full season. That's shocking. So I think the problems lie deeper with Spurs. But the thing is, this is a manager with such a bold system. I've never quite seen it before. I've seen really strong philosophies, and it almost feels a little bit like Marcelo Bielsa at Leeds in terms of with Ange, the fullbacks invert, the high line's higher than ever, and you would have thought, right, when you at the moment with Spurs we only have one centre back available in Dragusin, because that's where all our injuries have been, hamstring injuries, etc. I think because of the high line, to be totally honest with you. So that is, of course, on the manager. But you would have thought you would have flexed a little bit, maybe said, okay, fullbacks, don't invert into midfield, or don't be as high, or we drop the line deeper. But that hasn't happened. So at the moment, we're playing an 18-year-old midfielder in defence. For example, where we're playing this game, Jed Spence out of position with Fraser Forster in goal, and there's no adaptations for those players to soften the blow, if you like, or make it easier for them. So of course that is on Ange, but I do believe if he's given the tools in January, which I think he should be, and I just think he should be given that second full season, because at the end of the day, we're not going to, but if we go on a run where we win 3 or 4 games in a row, this month, for example, then all of a sudden you're back in the top 6 conversation. So I don't think it's time to panic. Well, at the same time, we lose to you and Arsenal, and then you're in Man United territory where all of a sudden you're in a relegation battle, if you like, by the media. So I don't think there's any need to panic. I think it shows it's really congested. But at the end of the day, the way that Ange plays, you have to have players 100%. They have to have them fit for a start, and when they're playing, you have to have them at their absolute best. But what's really killed us is 2 games a week. It killed you last year, and I think the ownership and the hierarchy and the whole recruitment team at Spurs have blood on their hands, because we went into the season, for example, Carl, with one defensive midfielder, one left back, one left-sided defender, no strong backup for Vicario. There's little things that didn't go and get a new winger. We didn't plan, and we actually have a thinner squad. I think the squad's, I read the other day, nearly half the size of what it was last year, and it was too big last year. But you should be having a stronger squad at least with more depth. But we didn't bring in experience, depth, cover, or anything, and we let experience go in the window. So I think the hierarchy have a lot to answer for, because right now we're down to the bare bones, and we actually in most games name one less substitute. But again, some of it's on the manager. You've got the youth academy there. I think we should show more trust in it.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much covering all the points that I would cover there, mate. Looking at the way it's going at the moment, it's purely down to, the ineptitude, if you want to put it that way, of Postecoglou. He's not seeming to want to change things on the tactics side of things. He seems to be pretty stuck to how he wants to play, and that's kind of costing you at times. I mean, looking at some of the stats, in I think it's the last 5 home league games, he has failed to win the last 5 of your home league games, and scoring 10 times, about conceding 15 in that as well. So, you score goals, but you do concede a lot of goals. And when you're coming up against, somebody like Newcastle, who at the moment seems to be, we're banging in a lot of goals against teams. We've got 3-0 wins, 4-0 wins, just seem to be really on fine scoring form at the moment. So it is a little worrying. If you are a Spurs fan, it is a little worrying, of course. But looking at it, it's going to be a game where hopefully, like we've just said, it's a midfield battle. Whoever wins that midfield battle, that's going to pretty much dictate how this game plays out, I think, to be honest, in my opinion, anyway. Looking at it as well, this is a chance for Newcastle to make a third consecutive away victory this season for the first time since April of 2023, when we beat Nottingham Forest and I believe it was West Ham and Brentford as well that were beat. And then, of course, we've got a chance of going on up the table a bit higher as well. If the results go in our favour, of course, at the weekend, then we'll have a chance to maybe push ourselves up into fourth place. If not, then, as long as the results go in our favour and we'll get the win against yourselves, then we'll stay around that fifth position. Yeah. So looking at it, there's always that possibility of we're getting Champions League next season as well, with the extra Champions League spot looking more likely to come to the Premier League, with we're, of course, doing really well in Europe. The teams, of course, from England doing really well in Europe this season. So, like you say, there's a lot of injuries at the moment. We were having that same problem last season when we had to go through all of the Champions League games, and we're seeing a lot of people, dropping right, left and centre, and that's something that's happening to yourselves, as you've just mentioned. But, I mean, where do you think you could do with some strengthening in that team? I mean, personally, I've talked about it in my last video I did, where I'm saying that we should be looking, as Newcastle United fans, we should be looking at, showing up that right centre-back role, maybe getting somebody for that right wing. But then, as we just covered earlier in the video, Murphy's doing really well in that position, with Kieran talks that Miggy's going to maybe move away to Charlotte FC for about 16 million or something. That's what's been going around at the moment. But if that happens, we'll have to wait and see. But a lot of teams at the moment, are suffering from this APT, FFP, whatever you want to call it, at the moment. A lot of teams are suffering to be able to bring anybody in. So where do you, think would be the best area to improve in your squad?
Yeah, no, thank you. It's a good question. To be honest with you, I think there's a few areas that we do need to strengthen. And I hold my hands up in a way, I suppose, because last summer I was one of the first to say, do you know what, this is a good window. And looking back, I think we recruited really well. We brought in Solanke Gray. We reduced the wage bill. We got players out the door. We got that supposed deadwood, if you like, out the door. So that was really good, but we didn't go that extra mile. Looking back, we did, as I said to you, didn't bring that experience or cover. So I think we really need to strengthen in defensive positions, because, when you're playing two out of the back five out of position, and you're having to just rely on people like Fraser Forster, it isn't what you want. It's an uncomfortable back line. It's an uncomfortable watch, and we are leaking goals for fun, in particular at home at the moment, where that pitch is a little bit bigger and we expand even further forward. Obviously, the goalkeeper's a massive thing that we're really linked with at the moment. For me, even bigger, it has to be left back, with a Doggy now out for at least 8 weeks with a hamstring injury. And Spence hasn't been included in the Europa League squad group stage. So as things stand in the Europa League for those 3 games, we've got absolutely no one to play left back until Davis comes back from his injury, which we don't know how long that will be. So there's no plan for that. We didn't plan for this situation, which is quite poor. We did need to bear in mind the possibility of getting injuries. So left back would be the priority, but there's a few things we need. We've got a lot of wingers, but I still think we might need one more for a bit of quality. But I'd rather focus, like, whether it be 1, 2, 3 players on that defence, because it really needs strengthening.
Yeah, that's pretty sound, mate, to be honest. What you're saying there seems like that's areas that you would need to improve, to be honest, and you are lacking around about that area. You need, in my opinion, you always need at least 2 people to a position to give yourself at least adequate cover, for these sort of situations where you're seeing players just dropping like flies right and left and centre. So we'll move on to talk about, of course, the score prediction and how you would line up going into this game, mate, and then that then we'll end it out.
Yeah, no worries. Which one would you like first? Would you like the my team or the score prediction?
We'll go with the team first, and then we'll go with the score prediction.
Yeah, no worries. My team would be totally different to what Angie's would be. So, for example, starting in goal, I put Brandon Austin in goal. I'll give him an opportunity. Young goalkeeper. He's been on the scenes for a long while. Fraser Forster doesn't suit the system. Can't play up from the back. So that's what I would do. Backline: Spence left back, Porro right back, and Graham Dragerson as the centre backs. I wouldn't have a problem though with turning to the academy, giving Dorrington a chance. I did bear that in mind. Midfield 3, it won't happen, but I'd go with Basuma, Kulusevski and Bergevall. Bergevall because he's got, fresh legs, hasn't played many minutes. So, energy in the tank, if you like, because it's really what we need right now. Yeah. I'd play Johnson on the right, Solanke down the middle, Maddison on the left, because Son's really struggled for form recently, for confidence, and has looked really leggy. So I'd play Maddison for the first time in his Spurs career at left wing, but I don't think it will happen.
Yes, it seems like a pretty good lineup, to be honest. I see that you're going with somebody else instead of Fraser Forster in there. Probably a good idea after he was the goalkeeper in that 6-1 loss at St James's Park. Of course, it wasn't him that was in goal when them goals went in. It was obviously Hugo Lloris then going off for Fraser Forster to come on. But I think, to be honest, our lineup going into the game will be pretty similar to what we've played over the recent games. Obviously, Shaw not being able to play this time around because of, as we mentioned, the suspension of picking up the yellow cards, not to do with the suspension, of course, that he's going to have in the League Cup semi-final against Arsenal. So that's going to be 2 games that we're not going to be able to see Shaw playing in that right centre-back role, which is a bit of an annoyance for us Newcastle fans, because that partnership has been doing pretty well of late with Dan Burn and Fabs, of course, in them centre-back roles. But, I mean, Lloyd Kelly probably going to go in there. To be honest, it is a bit of a drop-down. Non offence to Lloyd Kelly on that one, but he hasn't really had much game time for Newcastle this season, and that's probably because of the likes of Shaw, doing so well. It could possibly even be Botman in that centre-back role, but I think it may be a little bit too early for Botman to get a start, with him, of course, being out all the way since March of last year. So I think it would probably be Botman on the bench, maybe coming on for a couple of minutes towards the back end of the game. So for me, the goalkeeper is Martin Dubravka, right back position of Tino Livramento, centre back roles of Lloyd Kelly and Dan Burn. Left back's gotta be Lewis Hall for me, because you don't change the full backs in the setup. Really good full backs of Tino and Halsey. So definite go-to on the full-backs. In the midfield, it's going to be more along the lines of Sandy, Big Joe and Bruno in there. I don't see Eddie really changing that too much. On the wings, it's probably going to be Murphy on the right wing, Anthony Gordon on the left wing, and then Isak up top. That would be the lineup, of course, that I'd go with going into this game. And I think, to be honest, that's a pretty strong lineup when you consider, what Spurs are going to have to come up against with. But moving on to, of course, score predictions, mate. What's your score prediction going into this game?
I think you'll have too much for us, to be honest with you. I don't go into it with much expectations. So 3-1 Newcastle for me.
A 3-1 in Newcastle for you, mate?
Yeah, 3-1 Newcastle. But obviously, I hope I'm wrong.
Well, judging on the recent games that we've played over the time, I mean, a hot stat here going into it, Eddie's head-to-heads against Spurs have been high scoring, averaging over 4.5 goals per game, 4.67 goals per game. So there is a lot of goals that get scored in these 2 games against Spurs, of course, and ourselves. So I'm going to go for Newcastle to come away with a 4-0 win against Spurs. I feel with the amount of injuries that's there, Yeah, I know, a bit harsh, but with the amount of injuries that's there at the moment, I mean, I can't see Newcastle not coming away with a pretty high scoring win here, be it 3-0, 4-0, but I'll go with the latter and see a 4-0 win to Newcastle against Ange Postecoglou's side. So before we end off the video, do you want to give a shout out, mate, to where people can find you, check out your content and all that?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Really enjoyed it, and good luck for the rest
No
of the
worries,
season
mate.
as well.
Thank you.
You can follow me at Harry Scarfe, 22, football content creator on YouTube, a multi-platform. Have my own YouTube channel, Scarfe Spurs Talk, with Spurs England and Premier League content. So thank you, all the best.
Yeah, that's absolutely great. Thanks for watching, everybody. Remember to hit like, share, subscribe to the channel.